All right, welcome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is wonderful to be here with you today. After several months of COVID separation, especially, I want to welcome all of you that joined us here at the Marriott and welcome all of you that are using Zoom. We have 65 people in person here, and for those of you on Zoom, we're separated and distanced appropriately. It is a bit different. To start the program, I'd like to invite Eugene Craybill, our senior chaplain at Dulles, to give an invocation. Following Chaplain Craybill, Keith McNeil, the general manager for the Washington Dulles Marriott, would like to say a few words of greeting. Chaplain Craybill.
Thank you, Jack. Please pray with me. Dear God, we praise you and acknowledge your presence. Thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to gather. We pray for this committee for Dulles gathering and ask your peace, your guidance for all of us as we are navigating through these challenges of our businesses and livelihood. We pray your guidance for our president and CEO of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, Mr. Jack Potter, as he leads our airport community. Bless him for his sharing. Thank you for the food we are able to have eaten and also able to eat, and for the provisions from the Washington Dulles Marriott. Amen.
Good afternoon. We're delighted to have you here. This is our fourth meeting since March, so welcome. I was talking with my team. I said, I hope this starts a trend, so we'll see. Marriott International is committed to providing our guests and our associates with a clean and safe environment. We're currently working with industry partners and subject matter experts to ensure that when guests stay with us, they're in a clean and safe environment. I started the business 37 years ago for Marriott as a housekeeping manager, and now people realize how critical that department is to the well-being of our business and our customers. So with that being said, make sure you leave a nice tip for the housekeepers the next time you stay in a hotel. Again, enjoy your time with us, be safe and be well. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugene. Thank you, Keith. I also want to thank the Marriott staff for working with the Committee for Dulles for these past few months to where we're finally able to hold today's luncheon. Many things have been in flux over the last 6 months, and they and us have adapted to the changing times. I'm a big fan of John Wooden, and he's quoted a lot for a lot of things. But one quote that recently seems relevant is adaptability is being able to adjust to any situation at any given time. And I think all of us have been doing it over the last 6 months. David Moult reminded me that there was a briefer quote from Darwin, which is adapt or die. But certainly appreciate that the Marriott and the committee, and particularly Scott, have worked through the logistics for this event. I also want to recognize the following individuals that are here with us today. Our speaker, Jack Potter, President and CEO of MWA. Warner Sessions, MWA board member. Mike Stewart, Vice President and Airport Manager at Washington Dulles Airport. Monica Backman, the Director of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. Former Loudoun County Supervisor, Suzanne Volpe. Mr. Potter, today's guest speaker, will be introduced later this afternoon, and all of us are very eager to hear what you've got to say. I also want to recognize our CFD Board of Directors, and if you could all please stand up at once, that would be great. was in February that we held our last luncheon. Much has happened since then. First, our thoughts are with those in the airline industry, the hospitality industry, our airport employees that have been greatly impacted by this pandemic and the economic fallout. We hope and pray that conditions will quickly improve. I look forward to Jack's presentation to have a better understanding of what our two regional airports are dealing with each day and how our frontline public servants have continued to serve during these unprecedented times. Second, we've had several new individuals and companies become members of the committee since February. If you're in the audience, please give a hurrah or acknowledgement as I call out your name. The American Veterans Center, Annadale Properties, Comstock Companies, Destination Space USA, hurrah. DWC Holdings, the German Armed Forces Command, Howard Lansett and Associates, J2 Engineers, Jim Bonfils, Marone Catering, Northwestern Federal Credit Union, NV Kitchen and Remodeling, Rand Beckett Shalom, Rogers Consulting, RZ James Construction, Transwestern, and Volker. Thank you for joining the Committee for Dulles. We appreciate your support and we look forward to getting to know you. For those of you who are here or online who are not yet members of the committee, I encourage you to consider joining. On the back of your program, which everyone received at your chair, or online, there's an application form. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me or Scott York, and we'll help you. Third, our next big event will be the 2020 Tower of Dulles reception on November 19 at Signature Flight Support. As many of you know, we typically hold a gala in November, but given the events this year, we decided it's more appropriate to hold a reception so that we can still award our most prestigious award, the Tower for Dulles. We're delighted that we will be presenting that award to the TSA team at Dulles Airport. They have done a lot to help Dulles International be a secure facility and are very deserving of this recognition. I want to thank our host and premier platinum sponsor, Signature Flight Support, our platinum tower sponsor, Jet Aviation, our gold tower sponsor, Dewberry, our silver tower sponsor, ECS. Thank you all for helping us to plan for this important event. We hope that you will join us that evening and support the award recipients and the Committee for Dulles. You may purchase tickets online at committeefordulles.org. Lastly, as many of you know, Scott York has been serving this organization as interim executive director since March. We have appreciated his leadership these past few months, so much so that the board of directors appointed Scott as our executive director this past Thursday. Scott has demonstrated since way before March, but especially since March, that he brings the strategic and tactical skills necessary as executive director to the Committee for Dulles and will help lead us into the future. Personally, for me, thank you, Scott, for all you've done. Thank you for accepting this position, and we're delighted to have you lead us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Now, the main reason we're here today is to hear from Jack. For an introduction, I would like to invite Ed Zigo, President of Clarkport Corporation, past President of CFD, and current Board of Directors member, to come forward and introduce.
Well, I was giving Mr. Potter's CV, but as I told Jack earlier, I have a strong suspicion that everybody knows who he is and what he does. You know in the past that he was our Postmaster General and the CEO of the United States Postal Service. But what you didn't know is he's a guy from the Bronx. And here we are in beautiful Dulles Airport, straddling two counties in the heart of Northern Virginia, and a guy from Brooklyn is introducing a guy from the Bronx. So with no further ado, here's Jack.
Well, thank you, Ed, for that introduction. Finally, someone introduced me without an accent, so it was great.
One thing, I got to put the device. Sorry, I'm new at this. You can still talk. There you go.
Let's test it.
Let me just go back out of it. I'll give it a shot. There you go.
Okay, good. All right. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming out today. And most importantly, thank you for your continuing support of our airports, Dulles and Reagan, and obviously your name is Dulles, so most interested in Dulles. But this is a two-airport system, and it's extremely important that both operate in sync with one another. I want to congratulate the committee for Dulles on their selection of Scott. I really think that you picked the right guy. He knows our airports from when he worked in Loudoun County as the chairman of the Board of Supervisors. He was one of our greatest partners. And then after that, working as a greeter in our information booths out at Dulles. So Scott's been with us the whole way. So Scott, welcome aboard, and we really look forward to working with you. And thank you for taking on this challenge at this particular time, because as we get into this, you'll see airports are truly challenged, and anyone in the transportation industry is truly challenged right now. And I think it was appropriate that we're at the Marriott because they are truly feeling the pain of what's going on with COVID. So I hope that, first and foremost, that you're all staying healthy. Thank you for wearing masks, and that you're taking care of your families, because when all is said and done, that's the most important thing in life. And then we'll worry about the business end of it. And so today we'd like to talk a little bit about what's going on in that regard. Let me start out by saying how proud I am of all of our employees, because without them, we wouldn't even be open. And so while, probably a third of us are home, able to be home and telecommute, the administrative side of the house, we have, firefighters, we have police officers, we have plumbers, electricians, we have people on the front line, we call them our trades, who are out there every day working very hard to keep our airport open, to keep it safe, to keep it clean. And so I'm very, very proud of the work of all of those folks. And so, it kind of begins and ends with people. And so, again, very grateful to the Committee for Dulles. Thank you again for all of your support, and look forward to working with you in the coming years as we build our way back up. I heard a good quote about how do you think of this situation that we're in? And I think the quote particularly applies to people in the transportation business. And that is, we took an elevator down and we're going to have to climb our way up, back up one step at a time. And I truly believe that that's the situation that we're in. Obviously, we're hoping that we can get back on an elevator on some floor when a vaccine or a cure is in place. But till then, we're going to kind of gradually work our way back. To kind of demonstrate the elevator, this is a picture of airport traffic, passenger traffic at our airport, and if you both airports, and you can see that we declined rather dramatically in 2020, and that's the result of COVID. If you look at that, I don't know what happened there. I'm kind of caught in the loop, Scott. Okay, so there's the decline. We went down to a 95% decline. So 5% of passenger traffic happened in April. We've been gradually building up. We got up to about 20% in September. And I have to be really candid with you, things have gotten soft since then. Why? Well, it's because the thing that drove the growth in passenger traffic was leisure passengers. It wasn't business passengers. And Reagan and Dulles are largely business passenger airports. That's the concentration. And Dulles, as we know, a third of the passengers are international, and nobody's flying internationally. Very few. Now, where are we versus the rest of the country? The rest of the country got up to about 30%. So why were we below? Well, one is the concentration I just talked about of business and international. The other reason is, to be quite frank with you, you're not going to fly into an area where you're going to be subjected to a quarantine. So you get off a plane, and if you're going to DC, the mayor tells you you're going to have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. You're not going to go. And so areas of the country, like ours, that had the greatest level of lockdown, which was the Northeast, primarily New York's even lower than we are, places that had restrictions for folks visiting have the least amount of recovery. Now, those restrictions didn't exist for DC. I mean, it didn't exist for Virginia. You know, that wasn't an imposition there, but it was in DC. And if you're thinking about the rest of the country, what are they hearing? District of Columbia, and they equate it to Maryland and Virginia, Northern Virginia. And so that's kind of in a nutshell. Till that relief occurs, we're not even going to catch up to the rest of the country. And it's something that will just kind of, unfortunately, it seems to be happening at a very low pace. The other thing is, you might say, well, hey, we have a lot of tourism. How come we didn't get some benefit from tourism? Well, the quarantine is one. And two, the biggest attraction is our museums and the Smithsonian, and they're all but closed down. The biggest travel is for business. If you think about the prime business that we're in, it's government. And government is literally shut down, and folks are, working in a virtual world. They're not accepting visitors into the Pentagon or into the other government buildings. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where we are as an airport. And it's something that we're going to have to work our way through.
Just tell me when you're ready now.
Okay, you're in charge. All right, next, let's go to the next slide, please. So I have to do. Okay. All right, so how do we get here? This thing started in January for us. And it largely started because they started with, and I don't need to go through the whole slide, but it started with some travel restrictions on people coming out of Wuhan, China, coming into the United States. And then it kind of evolved to the point where there were restrictions coming for people coming from China, then people coming from Europe. And as these shutdowns occurred, obviously our international traffic dropped dramatically. And we had a period of time where much of our traffic was repatriation flights. People who were caught up in those quarantines and those shutdowns, and they ended up coming into the United States. So we had to work very closely with CDC and with other health officials on repatriating these folks and moving them through our airports. And so that program, when we started to have China folks funnel through IAD, started in September. And as you all know, the first case of COVID in Northern Virginia wasn't until March 7th. And then on March 13th, that's when the European travel was shut down. And that really, put the damper on us, and we dropped rather dramatically then. Next slide, please. Okay. So that's the picture of the repatriation flights. It was very onerous for us. It was very hard to keep, because there had to be medical screenings. What we evolved to where the medical screenings were done overseas, and then we were able to isolate individuals coming in that were considered to be symptomatic, and they could be kept from the rest of the population. So we didn't have to sanitize everything every time a flight came in. But it was really problematic. Let's keep going. Okay, so as I said earlier, we dropped down to 5% of traffic. We dropped down to 25% of airplane movement. So the planes kept moving, nobody was on them. Really a problem. Parking got as low as 97% down. Taxis and TNCs, because people wanted to stay isolated, dropped down to 1% of what it had been. Rental cars dropped down to 1%. Concession sales dropped 90%. And then Dulles Toll ridership was down to 67%. So, you know, that's another element that we do manage. So 33%, a third of what, you know, had been riding on the Dulles Toll Road suddenly was gone. Next slide, please. And so what do you do with that? So the one thing we did was, and I'll just talk now rather than to the slides, but just in general, we've doing a lot of work to try and make sure that we were ready, and when people came to the airport, they felt very, very comfortable with their surroundings. And so I'm gonna go through a few slides, but before we do, I just wanna say that that to me is one of our biggest jobs, is to make sure that we are as safe as we possibly can be. Now, when I say we, this isn't just MWA, because, you know, your experience at the airport starts, it could be with a rental car company, it could be with a concessionaire. Obviously, you're going through TSA, you're obviously going through customs, so what they do there is extremely important. So we look at this as a community effort, and we follow the guidance from the CDC, from the state of Virginia, and again, we want to make sure we just don't follow the guidance, but we're ahead of that guidance. So it starts with making people safe. The other thing we have to do is look out for the future of the airport in the sense that we have entities that are operating on airport property, and we have to make sure that they're going to survive this as best we can, survive the COVID situation. So let me just give you an example. When it comes to concessionaires, you know, we are not operating with all of our concessions open. We have a contractual right to demand it, but we're not. Because we recognize that if we were to do that, they would walk away from the airport. And we want the recovery to be as such that when people can fly and are flying, that we're ready for them and that we have concessions open. So we ratcheted down the concessions. We wanted to make sure that we had news, we had coffee, and we're starting to open up restaurants, so we're at about 40% of our concessions are open now. But there are some that demand traffic. You can't have a retail outlet and not have people walking by and buying things. And so, and you know, part of the shutdown included guidance that we were getting from the governor of Virginia. You know, you can't have a restaurant with people sitting down eating when it's not allowed in the state. So we're not an exception. So we'll bring those concessions back on as the traffic builds back up. As I said, we're up to about 20% of passengers, and we're about 40% of our concessions are open. And they have the option, by the way, of opening anytime they want. We're not saying you can't open. What we're saying is we're not going to charge you to open up a store when we know you can't make a profit. At the end of the day, we want folks to be able to survive this, and we also want them to be there when traffic does rebound. And so we're working our way through that. As I said about our employees, you know, a lot of our folks are working virtually. That's the same for a lot of the folks who normally are housed at the airport, and that will continue just like any other business. And so the biggest issue for us, as you can well imagine, is with that kind of decline, with nobody in your parking lots, with no fees coming from taxi cabs and the like, no fees, coming from rental car companies, it has a dramatic impact on the finances. And so we were very fortunate in two ways. First and foremost, we went into this situation probably in the best financial condition in the history of Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. And we had a profitable year in 2019. And the way the profits work is we make a profit, we don't have shareholders, so the profits get applied to the following year. And so those profits carried over into 2020. And then on top of that, we got CARES Act money. And the CARES Act money was over $200 million for the two airports. We're fortunate we're not going to have to apply it all in this year. And so we have some carryover money for 2021. So when we look at 2020, we're in very comfortable position to meet our covenants, our bond covenants, and to move into next year without having to do significant damage to concessionaires and or to airlines. The airlines are paying for the space that they rent, but if there's nobody landing, we're not getting landing fees, and we're not ratcheting up the prices on the rental charges that we have for airlines. And that's intentional. We're not looking to drive anybody out of our airports. Now, 2021 becomes extremely difficult. And I say extremely difficult because, yes, we have some CARES Act money carryover, but right now the forecasts for recovery are somewhat limited. I'm going to show you a chart. And so we're trying to do a delicate balancing act with, all right, how do we approach this in a way that assures that we're making the investments that we need to in order to make our facilities safe. We want to make sure that we're not taxing airlines or concessionaires or any other of our tenants to the point where we're putting them out of the business. At the same time, we have to focus on the bottom line and meet our obligations. And so the further along this goes, the longer it gets drawn out, obviously the more challenging it becomes. And that's why it's important that we have support from a community like you to help us, because there are things that are in the pipeline, like additional legislation. There's a HEALS Act that's being considered that would give additional funds to airlines and airports and help us through this situation. So again, the whole thing starts, and I'll go back to the slides now. It starts with making sure that we're ready. And so if you go into our airport, you're going to see plenty of signs basically telling you, do the right thing when you walk in the door. Wear a mask, maintain social distancing, and wash your hands. Don't contribute to the problem. Don't be part of the problem. And I think it's extremely important that we're doing that, because there's this myth that somehow an airplane is worse than, other, venues that you might be in terms of, how you might, contract COVID. And the fact of the matter is, there's been a lot of material out there talking about how ventilation works in an airport. There's an updraft, et cetera, and so forth. They're doing a lot of social distancing things. And so it's extremely important that, again, working as a community, we're able to demonstrate that. And so one of the things we are doing, and you'll see a picture of it later, I'm not going to worry about the slides. You'll see a picture of it later, is we are working with the airlines. They are bringing their best customers out to the airport to see what the experience would be like if they were to have largely their business passengers come back to the airport. So they see what we're doing at, our signage, and I'll walk through some stuff. You're going to see at TSA going forward, Ronald Reagan National, first airport in America, with all of the new safety protection that's being put up by TSA. We're fortunate that we're sitting right on their doorstep. They have their lab on our airport. So they're out there, all this plexiglass to make sure that their employees are safe and the traveling public is safe. And so, so we have tours going on that we're supporting, that the airlines are giving for their, again, their best customers, that walk them through the entire process and show folks what everyone in this entire chain, the concessionaires, you know, the airlines themselves, what they're doing to try and make it as touchless as possible and as protected a possible experience as they can. And it really is, I think it's sending a message. The other thing is, was at an event the other day and someone was talking and said, you know, offered that they had been in an airport. And they said, people really need to go and see it because, you know, the crowds that they had, you have a vision of what an airport's gonna be like and it's crowded. Well, it's not crowded, you know, not today. So, you know, we have to find the right balance here of safety, and I think we're going to do that. And I think it's starting to take hold. But until, again, there's some major relief, we're not going to have it. So our focus is safety first. So you can see we have some signs. Scott, next slide. Okay, and you'll see that all of our employees are out there wearing masks wherever they happen to be. They're installing a lot of equipment now to help us with, you know, protecting the traveling public. Next slide. We do, you see a mobile lounge in the center. We constantly we've really upped the frequency that we're treating any surface that people might touch, restrooms, the mobile lounge. There's a lot of wipe down going on, cleaning off keyboards. You know, after a flight departs, we'll go in and we'll clean a keyboard so that, and anywhere that a passenger might touch. Next slide. You know, information booths throughout the authority. You can see hand sanitizing stations, you know, throughout the airport. Anybody comes to the airport with a mask, we have plenty of masks. We give them out at our traveler's aid booth, and our public safety people have walk around. They have masks and they make them available to anyone traveling through the airport that doesn't have one. Next slide. And again, you can see a United Airlines kiosk and all the signage and all the protection that's there, and what we've done with plexiglass at our ticket counters. Next slide. And again, just more. Social distancing at baggage claim. Again, signage everywhere. The whole thing is drum it into everyone's head that that's extremely important. And I'm proud to say that when you go around the airport, you will see that finding somebody without a mask on is an exception. It truly is an exception. It's something that, you know, I think it's a surprise to a lot of people because, you know, the expectation is if you're in a public setting, that might not be the case. But people know that they're required, and we're one of the first to step up and say you're required to wear a mask. Now, you know, enforcing it is a challenge, but we enforce it by, in a let's call it a delicate way, and just encourage people and offer them masks and offer them sanitizer. Next slide. Okay, and then we've been working with the airlines and working with the agencies. In fact, Mike just did an event with CDC. It's going to be a video produced. We want to work to communicate to people that what they can expect when they come to the airport, that is a safe environment. And it's a choice that they should revisit in terms of if they need to get from one place to another. From a service standpoint, we have some 56 nonstop destinations that internationally that we traditionally have. You can see that today we have some 24 that are operating, 22 that we know are going to start hopefully by the end of this year. But again, that's all subject to what happens with COVID. If there's another spike, people will pull back. And then a commitment from another 10 who plan to start in 2021. So the airlines are ready. They're going to react to kind of to the demand. And so until the passengers become comfortable, obviously none of these will, potentially might not transpire, but the plan is there to bring the service back. If you look at domestic service, we got some 89 nonstop destinations. We're at 58 now. We got another 18 starting later in 2020, and then another 2 in 2021. Now, we are thinking that there's going to be a little bit of growth, and there's going to be a little bit of spike around the Thanksgiving holiday. And then when we get into, the Christmas, New Year cycle, we're expecting to have some traffic come back. And our hope is that it comes back and stays back. But, again, it all depends on the experience and what happens with COVID. United has announced that they're going to go to Accra and Lagos next year. So thank you to United. Appreciate that. So they're sending to us a message that they think things are going to rebound, and they're looking at additional markets to bring to Dulles Airport, which was all great. Next. So here's one of the things that is most challenging to us. It's when is it going to come back, and how do you plan? And that's not just the airport, but that's everybody that I just described, starting with the airlines, and then, the concessionaires and anybody else who does business at an airport. When can we expect traffic to come back? And unfortunately, the forecasters have, initially they were saying this is going to be a quick rebound. We're going to have a check mark, and unfortunately, it's staying down. And the forecasts, if you see this multiple lines, I don't expect you to see it any detail, but the forecasts keep dropping. And those aren't our forecasts. That's like Moody's and Fitch. And they're dropping their forecast because the recovery is much slower than anybody anticipated or had hoped. But even we're not coming back as quickly as even the most pessimistic forecasts were initially. And the forecasts have been kind of changing and, again, becoming more pessimistic. So that obviously has a major impact in terms of revenue. And, don't expect you to see the chart, but non-airline revenue through July, and keeping in mind that we had January and February and half of March that were very strong, and we were ahead of our forecast. We're down some 46%. So you look at non-airline revenue, it's down significantly. And we all know that the way, well, maybe you don't, but the way the finances at the airport work are, we spend money, we try to earn money, and other than from the airlines, we had driven non-airline revenue up to about 56% of total covering total costs, and then 44% drop to the airlines. Now that non-airline revenue has shrunk dramatically, we're not able to drop our costs because our costs are to cool and heat a building, keep the fire department there, keep the police department there. So you have some costs that are relatively fixed. Where we have variability, we take it out. But the fact that non-airline revenue is dependent on foot traffic, that's creating the gap that we have going forward. And it's our biggest challenge. And so we're happy that, and this is not going to recover until we get a rebound in the number of passengers. Now, we have not been resting on our laurels. When we got into this situation, we looked at a number of projects that were on the books for the next couple of years. And to be quite honest with you, we were hopeful that it would be a quick rebound. But we had projects on the books that would be very disruptive and are very disruptive during normal business. And one of the things that we had planned was to create a TNC, transportation network company, Uber, Lyft, Via, a separate curb for them. And with the lack of traffic, we've been able to accomplish that. So we've looked at projects and said, here's a window, it makes sense to do it. Let's get out here and not be disruptive to passengers when they come back. Let's get ahead of it, these projects were funded. And so we've moved ahead and accomplished a lot. You can see the third curb, or the new TNC curb at Dulles. We've paved some parking lots that were planned. A rare opportunity to have no cars in a lot. Makes sense to do that. Likewise, there was a lot of pavement that needed to be replaced and was in the planning phase out on the airfield. And you can see a taxiway pavement project that we've been able to accomplish, again, without interference, without disrupting passengers. And so at Reagan, and Scott's going to show a video, we've been able to really do a lot with Project Journey, and that's the new concourse and the new secure National Hall. And so if you go, Scott, we'll just look at a couple of comparison pictures next. So of August of 2019, you can see what the new concourse looks like, which is basically a lot of steel, no connectivity back to the sea terminal. Since a picture a year later, there it is. That's the new concourse. We're able to lay down a lot of cement. Even that concrete pad between the new North Concourse and the North Pier, that wasn't even in the plans. But the more we looked at that project, we realized there was going to be a lot of traffic there, and asphalt just wouldn't work as well as we would like to. So one way of minimizing future maintenance was to put down that concrete pad. So we were able to get ahead and do that. Next. Here's another angle of that picture. This is kind of from the road side. That was from the air side. And you can see what that looks like and then what it looks like today. And you can see the connector. And we'll be very anxious to have you out and take a look once it's safe enough for people to walk through. And then the interior, that's the hammerhead. Very similar to what we have at the BC terminal. Next. And then this is what's called a Centrum. So it's the area where you walk into when you come across the bridge from the sea terminal. And then looking back, sea terminal back to the new concourse back to the sea terminal. On the right-hand side, there's going to be a moving walkway. And so it's going to be great space. And then we have one of our first jet bridges have been installed. And then this is the Secure National Hall. Next picture, Scott. And you can see the circle. That's the south end of Secure National Hall. And Secure National Hall, we're building two 75,000 square foot TSA security checkpoints, one at each end of the campus. And so that's what it looked like a year ago. Today, next, you can see that, it has really taken form and the roof is being put on. If we go to the north side, there's, again, what it looked like a year ago. And then next slide, that's what it's looking like today. In fact, let's see, the roof is now being installed. So if you go there, you'll say, hey, but it's moving quite rapidly. On the ticket level, if you think about it, the ticket level is overseeing Secure National Hall. We had to make sure that people couldn't throw things over the wall from the non-secure area to secure area. So there's a glass, and then on top of the glass is a screening that's been put up. And so there you can see the progress that's being made there. Next slide. And Dulles Toll Road, just quickly, we are challenged with the Dulles Toll Road, as I've said earlier, and we're very much monitoring the situation. If you've been on the toll road, you know that we removed the toll collectors, and the reason was for their safety. And so, that's a situation that continues to be problematic. In a sense, we want to make sure that everyone's safe. We are going to be very mindful of the covenants that we have for bond coverage. And so it's an area that I'm grateful that there has been a recovery there. It's up well above 60% now, and hopefully that continues. But it does pose potentially an economic challenge if we don't get a recovery, you know, in the next year or so. So again, just an issue that we're managing our way through. Next slide. And then the Silver Line, you probably read about this in the paper all the time. We have been able to continue to move that project along. In a COVID world, you've probably heard that WMATA made an announcement that the soonest they would have revenue service is July of next year. But it makes perfect sense in light of the fact that when you look at ridership on the trains, it's somewhere in the 10% range. You know, till folks are riding, it makes no sense to, you know, really open these things up. And so you can still go to Wheelie Avenue, but again, and to be quite honest with you, that window's going to help us dot I's, cross T's, and we're going through all of our testing right now, and occasionally something comes up, but you know, the construction is complete. It's now a matter of making sure the systems get tested and that we're working our way through that. I want to thank you all again where I started for all that you've done for us over the years. Now, you know, here you saw kind of the IAD terminal lit up in blue to honor, you know, all of the public servants that have really worked away and carried the country through this situation. Now, let me just kind of talk a little bit about Committee Fidelis before we go into this and talk about some of the things that we were working on, we need to continue to work on. First and foremost, I want to thank, in particular, Scott for the leadership he's shown when it comes to protecting, you know, the area around Dulles from residential construction, because we have some new noise contours, and there's been a desire by several, let's call it, several builders to put some residential housing right in the way of what are our runways. Now, that's problematic in the long term. And so one of the things when we did new noise contours, it looks forward and talks about how much traffic is going to be there. And to be quite frank with you, our motivation is simple. We don't want to have neighbors that we're intrusive on. And if there's a vacant piece of land and we have planes flying over at a couple thousand feet, it's a very uncomfortable environment to live in. And it makes no sense to build housing, you know, where people are, you know, in harm's way. And from a selfish standpoint as an airport, you don't want that construction to, you know, limit future use of the airport. When it comes to the airports, our role, I view our role as being very simple. We're here to strengthen and help the economies of Virginia, DC, and Maryland. And we don't do that by restricting the ability and movement of, you know, traffic in and out. You know, one of the things that drove Amazon to come to this metropolitan area, you know, one of them was proximity to air service. And look at where they are. They're National Landing. Think about the name. You know, what else is national around it? The airport. And so our job is to help strengthen the economy. We're not necessarily, we don't want to be bad neighbors to developers, but we also don't want to have residences, you know, right on the flight paths and have, again, challenges with neighbors. And also, we don't want to restrict usage going forward, because these two airports do help drive the economy. And their recovery is important right now to the health of the economy, because we got to get the tourism business going back. We have to, you know, make sure that we can facilitate the movement of people in and out of this area to do business with the government and with a lot of the Fortune 500 that are, you know, moving into our area. Amazon in particular is, but Microsoft has plans, other folks have plans. And so that's our role. And so when we go, there's There's no motivation other than that drives everything that we do. It's let's help the economy, and that's why you're here. Because years ago, 50 years ago, whatever, people recognized the true gem that they potentially could have with an airport in their backyard. And all you have to do is look at that Dulles corridor and look at all the development that occurred along that corridor, and you say, the mindset of the people who thought of Dulles and who stepped up to be on the committee for Dulles, that was the right way to think, because it has helped Northern Virginia prosper. And as Northern Virginia prospered, we all know it helped the rest of the state. It also helped the entire area. So again, that's our motivation. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that we protect, the area around the airport, protect the people, but also protect the use of the airport. We also know that we run a 2-airport system, and so there have been and continue to be discussions about relaxation of the perimeter down at Reagan National. If that perimeter is relaxed, guess what? That creates problems for Dulles. It also creates more noise problems for the neighbors around Reagan, but it creates problems for Dulles Airport. And so we appreciate the fact that the Committee for Dulles has been there on that issue, and we're counting on the fact that you will continue to be there. We now need your help to make sure that you talk up the airport and some of the safety things that you've seen. Make sure that you take advantage of opportunities to take tours with airlines and or take, we'll offer at the appropriate time, we'll offer tours and accommodate people's being able to see, how we've made our airport secure and any new construction that's taken place at the airports. As you can tell, we're open, we're ready to do business. And then finally, we have an issue, as all airports do, with finances going forward. And so at some point, at an appropriate point, you may hear from David Mold and his team about legislation and seeking support from you for any legislation that might move that would help, again, the airport community, not just the airport itself, but the airport community as we try to work our way through this and get past this COVID situation. So I want to thank you in advance for that help, but also thank you for being there for all of these years. So with that, I just wanted to show a video of what's going on down at DCA when it comes to Project Journey, because a lot of great work has been done by our staff and Turner Construction to get this project up and going. So
Hopefully the sound on this will.
Design project manager for this new concourse building at Reagan National Airport. I invite you to join me on a walking tour of the project. We'll start at the south end of the connector walkway, a 500-foot-long extension that will lead passengers from National Hall and other gates in the existing terminal to the new port in Concourse. On your right, you'll notice a floor-to-ceiling glass wall. Passengers will be able to enjoy clear views existing terminal to provide a seamless transition between the two. The wall was assembled by mounting 5-foot wide prefabricated glass panels. On your left is a recessed pit in the floor for a pair of moving walkways. The moving walkways will shorten passengers' travel time between the existing terminal and the new concourse. The first set of moving walkways ends at the midpoint of the connector. This break allows passengers to turn around if needed. Later in the project, workers will install terrazzo flooring. The journey along this connector should be a relaxing one, allowing passengers to wind down after going through the screening process, while traveling on the moving walkway, enjoying the scenic view to the right, and getting ready to experience the amenities in the new concourse. Now, we come to the end of the second pair of moving walkways. To your left are restrooms, a companion care room, and a nursing room. Let me tell you about the orange wall in front of us. This is actually a temporary weather wall protecting an existing electrical facility that is being modified on site as part of the new construction. The wall will shield the electrical facility from rainwater while its roof is being lowered. Once the new concourse is open, passengers will not have to move through the narrow corridor. Instead, the wall will come down, and this path will lead into a wide open space with a tall ceiling called the Centrum. You'll learn more about that shortly. Turning around, we see the exterior of the connected structure we just walked through. You notice how the building material and detail tie in to the existing terminal. We are now in the Centrum, where natural light floods in via the tall windows surrounding two of the concourse's 14 gates. The area of windows overlooking the Centrum will house the American Airlines Admirals Club. A large sit-down restaurant will be located in the space below. Moving through the Centrum, we'll reach the corridor leading to the remaining gates. This area is 8 feet wider than the hallways located in terminals B and C. You notice framing of an indoor pet relief area to your left and a pair of restrooms on either side. Inside one of the restrooms, we can see a vanity sink support and wing walls are installed. Frosted glass will provide privacy and a diffuse natural light source to the restrooms. Just past the restrooms, the spaces on either side of the corridor will house 4 grab-and-go restaurants. This brings us to the final point of the tour, the pier end. It is a square-shaped space with dome structures above. These tree-like steel columns resemble the ones in the existing terminal and will be painted in ochre yellow to match the bright color of the existing terminal. The new concourse has a reduced number of columns to provide more spacious hold rooms for passengers. Here we see a jet bridge door opening. Jet bridges are being fabricated off-site for delivery to the site later this year. There will be a total of 10 jet bridges around the pier end, with 14 total for the new concourse. A look around shows the glass installed at the dome openings. The opening created at each dome, together with the high windows, maximize the amount of natural light coming into the space. It will be a great place to relax before your flight. Additional work will continue throughout the interior and exterior of the new concourse building. We look forward to welcoming passengers into this completed space in 2021. Be sure to subscribe to the Project Journey website if you'd like to follow the progress of construction. Thank you for coming along on the tour.
Thank you very much. That concludes my formal presentation, but I'd be happy to take a couple of questions if somebody had any.
Right now, a lot of businesses are obviously looking for more federal assistance going forward because of the money that runs out into this month, I guess. What's your take, and what are you hearing from the industry going forward? Should that additional relief from the federal government not come about?
Yeah.
You can repeat the question.
So the question was, should the airline industry, or airlines in particular, not get additional funding from the federal government? What do I think will happen? Well, obviously, the signal that's come from the airlines themselves is that they're going to have to lay off people because much of that money was intended to keep their employees, on board. But without that relief, they're going to have to tighten their belts. Not that they aren't already, but they'll have to double down their efforts. So there'll be a lot more furloughs in the industry. The one thing that just from observing, I think it's going to vary what happens airline by airline, because they all walked into this with different financial strengths. Some have done a good job of raising capital, and so they've stockpiled some cash. And so again, I think we're just going to have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. And obviously, we're most interested in what happens with American and United, but particularly United. So I think their intent is to survive. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, the length of time that it takes to get through this is critical. And the sooner we get beyond COVID, the better. And we're cheering for them, by the way, to get whatever they can get.
Appreciate your presentation very much so. Something, needless to say, you alluded to and everything that you've talked about, but I think needs to be made much stronger, is the fact that, the airport authority directly and indirectly contributes to about 125,000 jobs in our region. If something happens to the airport, our entire economy could be devastated. So that means a lot to everyone sitting in this room, because if you live anywhere in this area, many of you may not have been here, but I remember what it was like in the early 90s, where half of the houses in my neighborhood were vacant, where people just literally put the keys in the mailbox, took the U-Haul, and left. You don't want to see something like that happen. I bring up a point, because I even just checked it while we were here. You talked about wanting people to come to the airport and people to fly. I put it out on several social media platforms, Facebook, Nextdoor. Do you realize people think the airport, regular folks, think the airport is closed right now? You need to tell people the airport is open for business. If you want people to travel and people to vacation, go visit grandma, take that business trip, you need to be singing it from the rooftops and let people know that the airport is open. There are people literally posting on Facebook and Nextdoor and Instagram right now saying, oh, well, the only planes I've seen, we assume it's the Amazon cargo planes are going. So I throw that out there for you.
Thank you.
I think we have one online question.
We have Dave Kirby is wondering about the decision to remove toll workers versus the decision to keep on parking booth attendants at Dulles.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know, I mean,
Well, most
parking
of
attendants at Dulles are 5-star U Street contractors, so I guess that would be within their.
So
the question that was asked was, we don't have toll booth folks, but we do take videos of their license plates and mail them a bill. And we still have parking attendants at our airports, but you have the ability to go through the airport and park with your credit card. And we are trying to get to a touchless. But if somebody owes us a couple $100, if they'd stayed a couple of weeks, it's a lot different than missing out on a $1.50 toll. And so we want to accommodate that, and we don't have the ability to mail them a bill. Okay, oh, yes, sure.
United Airlines announced that they were doing quick COVID tests before people board their airline. Is that something that you would do at each of the airports and encourage the other airlines to do to encourage passengers getting on?
But what I would say to you is this: we as airport managers don't view ourselves as health officials, which is really kind of part of a challenge. And so there is a move afoot. There's a bill that's been put into Congress that would have the TSA do that type of screening. So anyone that would be getting, through a checkpoint, there's a proposed bill that that TSA would take on that function. I think one of the problems with, first of all, we are not health, workers. And we have had discussions, by the way, with the FAA, with TSA and others. And it makes no sense for an airport to do something on its own. Absolutely none. Because if I took your temperature here and you fly to, any other airport in the world, and they don't take your temperature getting back, what's the value of one piece of the network doing something? You really need the entire network if you're going to protect people, you need the entire network to do the same thing. And so, again, there's been a lot of discussion over the last 3 months on that topic. And there's a lot of, I would just call it ambiguity, uncertainty about the value of temperature checks. And again, we will follow whatever direction the health officials give us. And if tomorrow they told us we had to provide temperature checks, we would. But if it's not done in a systematic way and the entire network isn't protected, it's of very little value. And so that's the way we've weighed in. If an airline does it, they're going to do it at every airport. They're not going to selectively do one airport. They're going to do it through their entire network. And so that's kind of the higher level thinking about that. Okay? All right, with that, I want to thank you all for your questions. Scott, thank you.
Mr. Dan, you have our commitment to, if we get messages, we've all learned to do things in the past 6 months that we've never done before. Part of it is social media. So if you see news that are relevant, that are important to get the message out for the airports, in particular for Dulles, but for both airports, it's prevalent upon us as the Committee for Dulles and the membership to help get that word out. So keep logging in and retweeting and sharing news, especially good news, as we try to build confidence back to our airports. And at this point, Carol, I would like to invite you up front and let's do our raffle very quickly. Most of you bought a raffle tickets, and there are some great prices, and we do this for a great cause, which is our scholarship fund for people that work inside the fence at the airport. Carol?
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, you draw if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, you can do the mic.
I think you have that one up here.
Oh, this will work? Okay. All right, for those of you who are new or prospective Committee for Dulles members, I want to let you know that the Committee for Dulles Community Outreach is a nonprofit organization that awards academic scholarships for graduating high school seniors whose parents work at or volunteer at the airport. Despite the pandemic, this past spring, we continued our positive impact on the Dulles community and awarded a total of, sorry, I'm out of breath, $29,500 in scholarships to 21 deserving high school grads. So we received 41 applications, and the need was greater than we could fulfill. But we were proud to also make a $1,000 contribution to the Dulles Food Pantry to help people in need. So, sorry about that. I left on your seats, I left pieces of paper about how you can sponsor our race coming up. It's going to be virtual. We can't do it live, but it'll be virtual. And the cost of the sponsorships this year are really, really a good bargain. So if you want to get your name on the t-shirt, please fill that out or let me know. And if you can run the race virtually, you can sign up at DullesDayRun.org. So it's DullesDayRun.org, and I want to thank everybody here who has supported the race already. So to sum up, because I know I'm in a hurry,
We've awarded 145 scholarships totaling $272,500 since we started in 2013. Thank you. So we are making a difference in the community and welcome your continued support. Now for the auction items. Holly's going to help. So when if we pull your ticket, oh, thank you. If we pull your ticket, she will help you get the gift. We have a bottle of bourbon donated by Leo Titus, a bottle of wine donated by Holly. She also donated some really cute masks that we paired with some socks from Dulles Marketplace. We have a bottle of gin and vodka from Jack Vega. This is so you all can make quarantinis. We have a $100 gift card from the task force, a basket of cozy goodies from the task force. We have 10,000 Marriott Bonvoy points donated by the Dulles Marriott. And we also have a pair of mugs. So they hadn't bloomed yet, unfortunately, but they're yellow. All right, so the first one is 154535. 535. Oh, that's Holly.
You can take the alcohol. We won't judge.
Holly gets first pick. And then 154584. Oh, there you are. All right. 154578. Oh, is it really? Well, look how many tickets you bought. That's why.
We'll share the wealth.
Okay. 154617. That's right. 154623. See, we got some doubles. Well, look how many tickets. See, this is a good commercial if you buy a lot of tickets. We are. 154551. Oh.
No matter retirement.
I think I know what he's going to take.
The mums.
No, I don't think it is the mums. Okay, and 154456. 154456. All right. 154559. All right. Congratulations. There goes the gin.
There you go.
I got legs on it, didn't it?
To make up for Oktoberfest or lack.
154534. 534. 154534. Going once. Going twice. All right. 154566.
Two more. Okay.
Okay. 154538. 38, yeah. Hey, I have some plastic in my car if you want that for those months to protect your car. Okay, I mean, I have it here. 154390. Is that, are you close, but no, 154390. Oh, there you
There
go.
you go, Brandon.
All right. That's all, and I want to thank you all very much for your continued support. It was good to see everybody today. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. I want to remind everybody about our event in November. So please come out for our Tower of Dulles recognition event to recognize TSAs and the team and the members that have stood in the line of fire over this pandemic. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you for all of you who joined us on Zoom. I hope it worked out. We will send out the slides to everybody for you to view. Have a great day.